Hi, this is Lorilei, and today I decided just to do an impromptu video here. You can see I'm kind of not even set up. Got my little gnome, my little bee gnome as well. But I wanted to come on today because there are some things that have have come up. First of all, we're moving from the fall into the winter, and this is a time of nature showing us how to let go. The leaves turning colors and then letting go. Of course, that's showing that the temperature of the earth and the layers, the soil, the layers of the earth are changing. And it's time for us to live in harmony with that, time for us to let go. I know a lot of things in the outside circle of our collective consciousness, the big wide circles of saying, oh, it's the holiday season and it's a time to buy and it's a time to show your love by buying gifts, right? So I feel like the audience that I'm talking to is like, yeah, we're not even going into that, but we do show our love every day, that whatever we choose to do comes from our heart. Whatever ceremony or tradition we choose to do because we love to do it, even if it looks very traditional, or it could look very non-traditional. It could be a fusion of both, all of it, some of it, none of it, all of it, completely different. However that might look. The other thing is, I want to just encourage you to go within. If you feel like there are strong emotions or movements or expectations of you and your family, I think this is a really good time to move into the direction of a community, an online community, a community in person. It could be a community of gardeners. It could be a community of, animal lovers, cat lovers. It could be a knitting circle, crochet circle. It could be teaching other people skills that you have, life skills. Could be a really creative time. I didn't grow up in the region or the area that I have lived for the last 23 years, because where I lived, we didn't have all the seasons. I lived about an hour from the ocean of the west coast of the United States. I lived literally in the foothills of the mountains, where we rode our bikes up to the mountains. And older, we drove our cars and we went snow skiing. And every day, this beautiful range of mountains was right before me. And I always thought that north was where the mountains were, that I always thought north was where the mountains are as a kid, because you're like, well, if you ever get lost, those mountains are north, right? And it was really, really in a beautiful, ideal place to grow up. And as an adult, my family had moved back to the Midwest, back to Illinois. And without going into all the story, the main reason I wanted to bring that point up is I know what it's like not to have all the seasons. I know what it's like to live near the ocean. I know what it's like to be in the foothills of the mountains. I know what nature is like. And I know that nature was like my best friend. Nature was my solitude, the animals, nature, and soccer, camaraderie in soccer. I was a high-powered athlete because I loved soccer. I loved the camaraderie. I loved pushing myself, and I had some really amazing coaches. I was in the first girls soccer team in my city. Kind of dates me a little bit, but boys soccer started first, and pretty lucky we had girls soccer. I'll say lucky, but it doesn't always happen that way in other places. So it's something I'm grateful for. And then my coach, I'll just say that my coach was a boys coach, and he was a travel league soccer coach. And he decided that he wanted to, he had a daughter and she was very young when he decided that he really wanted to infuse really good coaching and really, up the caliber of our gameplay. And he knew that coaches made a big difference in that, right? Like he made a huge difference. He elevated my game and other people's games. And I first of all, I had to compete against the boys. That's what he did. The first thing he said is like, he treated the girls and the boys exactly the same, coached them the same. We had the same kind of drills and really pushed us. And he said, if anyone wants extra practice, come and practice with the guys. You have to do everything. You can't pick and choose. And so I would go practice with the guys my age. And that helped me because they were at a different caliber. But I really love that. So when I think about spiritual coaching, again, I've been fortunate in a lot of ways to be able to have some very intense experiences. I've had, I really would say that throughout my life, I've really had to lean into myself and for my own resilience. And it started early on in childhood. So, this is just kind of a video. I wanted to share some small things that you may or may not have followed me over the years. I'll just say, since 2019, March 2019, I think, I'm going to visit my parents in Sedona. They just moved there, and I'm going to start this new program to train and to travel, all over the United States to offer this program and to really empower the healers in this ascension process. And, my kids were getting older. One was in high school, one was in moving. Well, two of them were still in elementary school, but towards the last couple of years, I'm like, this is perfect. I stayed home with them because there's a lot of reasons. And I'm still trying to figure out, here's the raw part too. It's like, I'm still trying to figure out as a mom, as a parent, as a person, how to share my story without revealing too much about the bodhisattvas that live in my house, the souls that showed up in my life to play the role of my children, and I play the role of mom. Is hard because so much of what I want to share with you is really about their life, and I haven't really figured out how to honor their process. Other than one thing that I do is that I have three kids. And what I will do is I will talk about one. And what I'm really doing is I'm taking all three of them together and combining them. And I might highlight different aspects. So it's one way that I kind of preserve the sanctity of each one of them, right? And I won't go too much into that other than to say that it might be kind of shocking. This might be kind of shocking. But as dedicated as I have been, I'll say it like this. Like I've read, so what was I listening to? I was listening to Gene Keys, which I have a lot of positive things to say about that. Like one thing is Richard Rudd. Like I would just say, you don't need really to know Gene Keys. Richard Rudd, watch his lives, because what does he do? Because he went into himself and he received this information and he just started working with it and finding the validity in it. And then he also realized that he wasn't the only one that had this process. And so if you see the people that he works with, you see the lives that he does, he brings other people in so that he can bring a presence to what they have within them. And that is what I see. And that's the kind of mentors that I've had in the recent years, right? So because of everything that happened in 2019, I didn't go to Sedona. I didn't work outside and be able to do my things. My husband is a teacher, started teaching high school in our living room. It was crazy town, right? And then you think things are going to get better, things are going to move on. No, because the world and the energy and everything has just gone upside down, topsy-turvy. And I have 3 generations of kids in my home, and they're, my young adults now, getting to be young adults. And each one of them is so diverse and so many different things. And it's, like, even though I love it, like parenting is hard. And, this is the part that gets kind of sticky, is that, we all have teenagers, and some of us could roll with the changes a little bit more. I'm not going to say complicit, but I'm just going to say, like, and in my role, like, my kids are not like me. I'll just say that. They are not. But what they do is they cause me to stretch, because they cause me to say, it's the circumstances may or may not change around me, and I cannot wait for the circumstances to change, because I have to have calm in myself. I have to have belief in myself, right? I have to believe that and visualize and affirm that my children's lives are going to be okay, because I tell you, literally in my environment, literally in my face, in my ears, in my eyes, I am not seeing that. Okay. One of my mentors described this to me really early on, which is, she said, and this is when my kids are fairly young too, but all these things they've been going through, the school didn't support, it's kind of a fringe group and fringe experiences. And my whole life has just been raising my kids, talking to schools, educating teachers. Our whole life, our whole process, I feel, has always been, we're the stick out. We're the green apple in the red apple bunch, And so I've had to really inform and educate and show. There is I'll just say this as far as the educational system, like from the very beginning of my 21-year-old who started through the system, and we did start with Montessori, and to my other two, which are now 15 and 16 years old, there's been a lot of changes, a lot of evolution. A lot of teachers are getting training in social emotional education. But the thing is, we got to really flip the script, is that like the educational process, it goes in as intellectual information. So I sat in a class on social emotional education. The teachers say, I have my certificate, and they genuinely believe that they are prepared. But I live it. I know it. I educate myself. I've done a lot on my own, because it was almost like self-preservation for me and my kids, and all these different energetic techniques, and that to put together that I would do for myself and for them, because we didn't have an extra income in order to pay for the services. And I valued those services, and we paid for a lot of services, and we still do. But I'm fortunate in that I'm able to learn a lot of the techniques. I'm able to learn. I love facilitation. I love that co-leadership and collaboration. But when it comes back to my home environment in my neighborhood, they have it in their head, but they are not practicing it. They are not practicing inclusion. I'm sorry, it's been our experience that they are not practicing some of these things. And in some ways they think they are, or they like hide it. So what happens when their kids are not treating my kids well, then what happens is they say, well, since my kids don't treat your kids well, and I don't want to get a bad reputation, we're no longer including you. Your child is not invited. Was not invited to the mom parties. I had some really brave and loving individuals would say to me, you don't ever seem to be really bothered by you're not being invited to things. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm not being invited to. I am just so far out of that it's okay, because these were individuals like, we love you, and it's not fair what people say about you. They don't know you, right? So you criticize what you don't know, and you fear what you don't know. And the moment that you give them a chance, you can't judge a book by its cover, or what, I don't know. I really don't know. And it's not my job to know. I just realized, like, okay, well, it is my job to be who I am. And it is my job sometimes when I have to stand up for things, and I do. And I just want to say that's the kind of support that I want to give. So I know I'll find other ways to say this message, and I know other people will find this, but I have to say, no, this is not the perfect life. No, my life and my children have not gone in sequence. And back to the gene keys, which again I really love, but towards the later gene keys, things in that book, I'm like, this is crazy. Why are people listening to this? Only in the fact that what they were saying is, oh, there's going to be this beautiful thing that's going to happen, and everything's just going to fall in line, and everything's just going to float together. The children, they're going to come up, and they're going to be, ideal children. I'm like, no, that is not. It's messy. It's there. There is a point on our psyche and our evolution. We are going to be teenagers, and even as adult, we get to points where we're teenagers, where we have to throw off what society tells us is right and wrong, so that we can go into ourselves. This is a natural and normal part of living in childhood, and I've raised 3 really independent children. We need autonomy, self-autonomy since infancy or something. I don't know. I have to create another thing that will go beyond, right? Another definition only to go beyond that definition, because it's just crazy. They're amazing and awesome, but they stretch because they're very connected to what's going on in the world in ways that many people are not, and they're developing these bodies and having to use this static dynamic body, but it doesn't fit the needs of the energy, the mind, and everything that they have. And so it's kind of like using an outdated car, like a 20-year-old car, because that's the best vehicle you have, and you really need something that's in the future. So they're here to help us evolve these bodies. So I just want to say that. So that's the main thing, is like, when you see me, I hope you see me as an advocate for every mom, every person, every parent out there who's has kids. Just do it differently. And my husband and I read some things in a couple of years ago in one of my spiritual protocols, and they were talking about parents that showed up because there's a new wave of parenting, and this goes back 20 years. And it was that it's parenting without force, okay? It's parenting without punishment. It's parenting, we still live in a world where corporal punishment, where the kids are hit, kids are punished, rather than kids are listened and understood, and processes are put in place so that everybody gets to win, so that everybody gets to lean in, because everybody gets to really receive more of what it is they're creating, and not being bound by the limitations and the karmas and the belief systems of their parents and of society, right? But it's this process, and that's really how my husband and I are as parents. Yeah, it started off as a child-centered home. So I'll just say that's a little bit about our parenting style. I love to work with parents. I love to work with families, because I know that in this world, like, I'm just going to say this, like, I have many, many, many friends that have not chosen to have children. They have chosen for themselves a life that's dynamic and amazing, and that this was a different kind of a journey for them. And if I didn't parent, I would have so many friends. But I'm kind of in this in between, where like 90% of the people that I relate to do not have children, and 10% maybe do, and or raising their children at different times, or younger than life, where I had my children, midlife, midlife. So when it comes to that, I would just want to say that I'm not excluding anybody. I'm not excluding anybody that has, a service, a business. They have partnerships, and they have animals, and they give their life in however you do your life. And I love that. But there is this unique experience that my husband and I signed up for, and it doesn't make it better or worse. It just makes it different. And it's the thing that I can speak to, which is one of the unique features of being a parent, is we just don't have the time to say, whatever is going on in our child's life, can you do that next season? Can you do that next year? Can I put this on hold? Can I do this another time? Can I go get more education? Because when we become pregnant, and the moms and dads too, but you really start to feel like, okay, you're connected to world, because now not only what you do, but what your child does is now coming into your world, and it impacts you. And you never really felt that before, right? So there's a whole lot of learning. There's a baptism by fire that happens in there, hopefully by water too. And the children in our lives, the large souls and small bodies that are developing, are moving. And it is I just really, not to compare it, but that is the only thing that in life keeps us connected to moving along as an adult. You cannot take a time out. You cannot take a break. Like they need you now. You can't say, oh, I'm going to do this later. You have to really step in and talk about the power of the moment, like, and being there with your children. Because not only is it you need to be, there's that need, but then there's that want to be there. You want to see them take those first steps. You want to see them expanding the world and what's possible, what's available, and tasting new foods and new sights and new sounds, and taking them out into the world that you live in, and taking them out into community, and taking them on vacations, and taking them to see the world, and see how they show up, and see how you show up, and to do this in a really organic and amazing way. And we really want to be present for all of that. So I love it, right? I really, really love it. And sometimes it is a challenge. It's a challenge sometimes to mix those things together. It is a challenge sometimes to mix friendships with moms, especially, like I said, like they didn't understand me, and it really didn't really matter. And yet I had all these intense things going on at home. And so actually, if you are an introvert and you're an empath and we're doing our things at home, like I felt comfortable at home. Like I took my kids out and created a little bubble around us, and we interacted and came home, right? So we create our own little kind of bubble. We create the things where, wherever we go. And then I have other friends that I guess is going to be a little bit more about friendship. And I'll end with when our loved ones come to visit, because this morphs into friendship, right? So the other part is my friends that don't have kids. So for a long time, I can only say, because there's no one that ever really, like, I may have one person who probably knew me pretty well, or probably didn't really care what I thought, which is perfectly great too. I love that too. Like, I don't care what Lorilei says or thinks. I'm just going to tell her this. Like, you own that. You go. One person that told me that, well, you have children, and I just don't associate with people who have children. And then they said, because they talk about them all the time. And I was like, okay, I hear that. And I hear that's your need. And I hear that your need is to be around other people who are similar, who are doing these things. And I'm like, I get that. Like, I know you don't know me. I know you. I know that you're just saying that you would never want to put a boundary up. Like, don't talk about your children. Like, that's awkward, right? Like, that's not true friendship if you can't talk about something. But I will say this. So I listened to that and I said, you know what? Like, my friendships with my friends that don't have children are actually, in a lot of ways, a breath of fresh air. Because one of the things as moms, as parents, as people, we could do is we talk about our animals, we talk about our kids, or we can talk about work. There's something that gives us an identity, and so that we're always talking about that. And so it helped me really understand that my time with my friends was not time that I wanted to talk about my children. I was like living it. I never really got away from it, so that I would talk to my friends and we talk about us. What about you? What about me? What are we doing? What's life look like? What are your challenges? What are your loves? What are your passions? What are your heartbreaks? We really created this place. And I also, it comes to me now that what I also started doing is something that I kind of developed through this process, right, of people and kind of filters. I mean, filters and boundaries are healthy. You just have to be in charge of it. It can't go unconscious, and then it becomes a habit, or then becomes a belief system, right? Like, I never associate with people who have kids because I don't love it. I never associate with people who don't have kids or who don't have animals, because they don't get it. They might judge me for treating my animal like a kid. And I just, frankly, I don't need that. I don't need that layer. I don't need that pattern in my life. I love them, but that pattern's not welcome. So there you go. So with that, I would always just kind of say, with my friends, whatever they want to talk about, I follow their lead. Like, that's the most thing. Like, I have a friend, it started probably with a friend of mine who was single for a long time, and then adopted children, and then was married longtime friendship. And so I wouldn't ask her about her relationship. I wouldn't ask her about her kids. And it wasn't because I didn't care. It's because actually her and I were friends. This is how far back the friendship goes. We were friends before we ever had a significant other and before we ever had children, right? So our friendship goes really far back. So it wasn't hard for us to talk about. We were connected because we met each other doing volunteer work for the planet, world peace projects, okay, helping bring life and value to everyone in the world, right? And create a way that empowers people instead of takes away their power or perpetuates people feeling victimized, right? Like you can only receive assistance if you're not doing something for yourself. This was like 30 years ago, a long time ago, when those ideas were new, when those empowering people, teaching people how to fish instead of just giving people fish, so that they could think for themselves, so that they could do to create their own way in the world, so that they weren't a number for somebody. So this is how far back it goes. So I just really extended that to, my other friends and my other friendships as well. So over time, I would say, I want to segue, and how do I gracefully segue into that? I'll probably start by saying that I am going to talk about people that transition. I'm going to talk a little bit about really from my point of view, of course, is the only point of view I have to speak from, about my experiences, how when my loved ones who had transitioned, how they came back. And I'm only going to do a really kind of a high level on this because we could do a deep dive of this. Because I've always been the kind of person that helped infants and people bring life into the world. And I've also helped individuals and loved ones and many animals transition out of their body or their vehicle into the next level of existence. And so as hard as it is, I've always had this poetry of life and death and birth and rebirth kind of all happening in crazy ways in my life. And I'll just say, when my kids were really little, I could list a whole bunch of things, right, that happened. But one thing that happened was that we did have one of our children. It was possible that there was something they had that was going to take them out. And this is when they were an infant. They were 6 months old. And we also at that time had two individuals in our immediate family, which had long bouts of dealing with cancer within their body and within their mind, right? And they were transitioning. So even though we were a new family and we really needed that extra support, we had more than one child at that time. And we could not lean into our family because these other individuals went right after the other. Like one was cancer, it was like a series of things. A car accident, they were in the hospital for a year. And then during that time, cancer took hold. And then it was a 5-year journey with cancer. And they finally, relinquished their spirit to be able to move on. And then they've since come back into the world and made themselves known. It's really beautiful, right? But and then and right after that happened, then another one, and then she had cancer, and then it was like 3-4 different kinds, and really aggressive, and so the family all gathered around, of course, and at the same time, we were the only children. We were the only people in our immediate family, my husband's immediate family that have children. The 3 others don't, and it was a conscious decision. So anyway, so it was the only grandchildren that they were going to come, our three children. So, so even with that, we could not lean into that. So what happened is my husband and I did learn that it was better for he and I to really do a lot of the heavy lifting. So he was going to work and I was staying home. I had quit my job at that time because we really didn't know what's going to happen. We needed stability. So he was a teacher. He is a teacher. And so he needed to go to work and I needed to stay home so I could take care of the kids and the appointments, managing whatever needed to be done for a certain period of time. And I have to tell you, it never ended. It never ended. That never ended. 16, 17 years ago. And I'm just now, again, like I had alluded to in the beginning, just now starting to, after COVID and all these things happened, and then my kids are still adjusting, and I have to find a way in order to do the things that I love to do and to, be supported. And my true passion is to earn my living with my healing skills and abilities, my facilitated leadership. And so my community is some ways in which I do that and kind of give you an introduction. So, but I want to say that after my other family member, had transitioned, it was only then that actually then we had taken my child to many different healers. And I'll say that we also, I did an invocation for picking the doctor who's going to be right for us and right for our child. And I'll tell you, when we walked into the room and saw this doctor, we had no idea what's going on. He checks out our child, this, that, and the other thing. And he said, your child is going to be just fine. Mark my words. And I was like, it was one of the first times that I really realized how powerful invocation is. And it's really challenging. I know when you're on that line of desperation and when there's an emergency, that is really like the worst time in the world to try to build faith or hope in like alternative medicine, right? I know how hard it and devastating, because there I was with my child, and like, would my own personal beliefs keep my child from getting the kind of help that they need? It was really a struggle. And my partner and I, we did not see eye to eye on this. And this is life and death. I give him a lot of props for that, because it could have gone differently, right? And so what happened? Everything was fine with my child. Now, we did take him to a couple other places where we did energy work, and we really did work on ourselves. We worked on being in the moment. We worked on, I don't have control over what has happened or what has gone on in our child's body, but I certainly know the quality of life. I know the quality of what we're doing. I know our hopes and aspirations. And this child also had that experience of that energy work and healing from a lot of different people. And I'm like, I think this is part of our child's journey in life, is they're going to be connected and going to be connected in these very diverse ways. And this particular child did show up and it caused a lot of anxiety. But when my child was just before school, they would touch people and they would know what was going on in their body. They would know what was happening, and it scared them. And it was something we'd never really come in contact with before. So, I mean, there's things that happen along these journeys with our children. And it's not that we've done anything wrong or anything bad. It's just like, what can we do with this situation? And how can we help our child and help other children, other families grow from this? So with that said, I'll just say at the end of this is that my best friend from high school. Now, she transitioned, how many years ago has it? Well, at least 15, 14, 13, 12, about 12 years ago. So she transitioned about 12 years ago, and we were best friends since high school. Now, I'm not going to go into all the journey with all of that, but I'm just going to say that when she did not have the beliefs that I did, she was afraid of the things that I did. And so it was a really good lesson to understand that I didn't talk about the things that I believed in. I talked about the things that she believed in. And we always had this great love and faith. And we were in a religious school together. So I knew some of the things that she leaned into, but some of the things that she even leaned into in this religious education, let's say, training, were also things that made her really afraid to leave her body. she was really feeling like she'd done so many things in her life that it was unforgivable. There was a lot of things that she had regrets for. And these were all things that actually made her last years in life really difficult, because she just was looking for peace. Anyway, it was really interesting, because we learned it's not so much what we have to give and what we want to put on people. It's what people want to receive, and receive it in the ways that they can receive it, right? That our ego doesn't need to say, hey, your way isn't going to work. You need this. Okay. Love always works. Love always nurtures. There is this amazing unconditional love, right? You think about the sun, you think about how it shines equally in all places, into everyone. All right. So that's, non-judgment, unconditional love, compassionate love, a love for all, a love that your intrinsic value is just that. It's value that's in you that no one can take away. You are valuable just because you are, right? So she had a really hard time, and a lot of things happened. And she did have peace before she transitioned. And when she found this peace that she received, she left very, very, very quickly and very peacefully, right? As well. So because of all this connection with her, and like, what do you do when you're best? And like, she was my best friend, and I had said that, it was a challenge for me to connect with other people in my spiritual groups who maybe saw me a certain kind of way. I don't know. And then other individuals in my at home, in my neighborhoods, that saw me like different. Like, I'm like, well, I'm from California. And they'd be like, oh yeah, that explains a lot of it. I was like, not really, but you have to give someone a reason to say, why is she different? What is it about her? Not going to give that person a chance. But I've always had this innocent quality about me. I've always had a genuine curiosity. And I'm kind of person, like, if people don't want me there, or it causes them issues, like, I'm okay, because you know what, I want to be where I'm celebrated. I want to be not where I'm tolerated. I want people to feel accepted and loved, and if they're not accepted and loved, then I'm going to go someplace else and create acceptance and love, so that they can be there, like a cool glass of water for someone who's in a parched desert. I'm not going to criticize the current structure. I'm going to go and create my own little, Lorilei lemonade stand or something, but that's the innocence of that child that we all have within us. And that innocence has not been valued in my life, in my lifetime, that innocence, that creativity, what they would call naivete. But it turns any kind of hostility or negativity into joy. And it comes from a place, a higher place, of saying the temporary things need to be left in the temporary places, and the eternal things are meant to be shared in all levels. And I can't even explain to you how it got there. I just know that it is. And again, this is raw. This is kind of like stream of consciousness, because I wanted to address a bunch of different things. So the next thing that really comes up to me, again, we're still talking about transitions. We're talking about friendship, and when loved ones transition, and how that dynamic changes, right? Like, if you knew that person wasn't going to be in your life forever for whatever reason, let's say you moved cross country, they're not going to be in the same way that you are if they're in your neighborhood, right? So you would do things with them. You would, get rid of the small stuff. You would, forgive and forget. And it would be like, what is there to forgive and forget? Let's have this moment together. And then when they transition, and even like I said, she was my best friend, but we are completely different. I always said, God put her in my heart and never took her out. And we truly were like sisters, because though I don't have sisters, and I didn't have a great relationship with my sibling, we would fight, but we would share each other's hearts. And I was never lied to her, but always supported her, and she did the same thing. Like, it was equally there for me. She didn't understand the things that I was doing. I didn't understand some of the things that I was doing in metaphysics, and, past lives, and, dream interpretation, lucid dreaming, astral projection, time changes, time movements, all that. Like those were on kind of new things that were opening and flourishing and flowering in me, and just seemed to be, spontaneous. The thing that I was is dedicated and disciplined. And I started off in my journey in metaphysics in a very structured and disciplined way. And I did need that. I needed that for that time. I needed that concentration. I needed attention. I needed a structure. But you know what? I knew how to follow structure, and I knew how to follow the rules. But what was missing, there was a voice and spoke about it, was truly only a little bit. Special occasions was there dancing and poetry and free thinking and creative things, and going beyond the things that we were taught. Because if anyone got a little too creative, or you would grow in your maturity, like we were directors of spiritual centers all over the Midwest in the United States, and there were area directors, and there was board of directors, and we had some ideas. We were growing. We were doing this educational system, which was supposed to be experiential, and it was. And once we started having other ideas outside of other people, there was not that receptivity. There was not the closeness. It was like, no, this is our time to shine. We're the greater consciousness here. You possibly can't have good ideas. You're derailing our ideas. I'm like, well, you, like my teenagers, I'm saying here with my teenagers, is that they are like not wanting anything that I think of, or my husband, or even things from their own experiences, whether you see it as one lifetime that's experienced on many levels, or many lifetimes, whatever that view, it doesn't matter. It still fits. That they have to throw off the belief systems, the things that don't fit, the things that do fit, so that they can pick up what they want and move forward without all the baggage, right? They don't need the Hatfields and the McCoys. It's not their job to establish the wars. It's not their jobs to fight anything. It's not their job. Their job is to live in a world of their dreams and know that that's possible without having to fight for it, to be able to create it, to be able to do it, and to move it. So when I was being handled in a heavy-handed manner, because I had ideas of how we could reach more people, because I had ideas that this is a world peace project. I had an idea of supporting other individuals and other groups, or individuals starting groups in places that we were not, to provide education and resources so that they could create their own answer to how to create world peace, how to live peacefully, how to have world peace. Because I don't think it's one answer for world peace and having a world that we're meant to have, where we take care of our Mother Earth, we take care of our resources, and we take care of our global Milky Way galaxy. Like we are really not alone in any of this, right? And so they said no. They said no. And then and I had gotten an outside job learning how to do facilitated leadership. I was working for a training company in San Francisco and Boston. It was just like mind blowing. It was something I'd already worked as an individual, and now I was in a job as an administrative assistant for a telecommunications company. This is a short version of it. And they received training. And so they received training, and they brought me in, and they taught me this thing that they used. And I didn't know it came from another company. Years later, I'm like, the company that taught them the process, I had applied and received a job in their marketing department. And a part of that is learning the process, because we use that process together when we're working, right? You have to use what it is you teach, and it helps you understand it and also specialize in it, right? And adapt it and grow it. And so I was able to find these two things together, and I brought it to my current educational and service. I'm a volunteer. I'm volunteering hours. My whole life is spent volunteering. In my life, I'm living in a conscious community. I'm volunteering my time and attention to teach people and in this community. And on top of that, I have to go work an outside job. And so I was like trying to fill this all together. You have no time for family. You have no time for any other connections. You have no time for anybody that's not in your immediate environment. And there's a part of it that's really exciting and amazing. And you just move so quickly and so many demands that you don't even really have time to say, hey, wait a minute, how's this work for me? So that's what happened. And I was like, okay, I have to leave. I have leaving all my friends. I'm leaving my home where I live. I have hardly any money in my bank because I haven't had time to work in any job that required consistency. I did work a lot and I found some really great opportunities to capitalize on my skills and to learn a lot of different businesses when that wasn't valued. It was still, you work one job and you stay there. But I worked for a lot of really big companies. I learned a lot of things I would have never learned if I stayed in one particular place. But the world wasn't ready for that. And I think it's ready now, or it has been. And I've been home with my kids. I've been at home working at the energies in the world. I've been home doing these things. And my own inner guidance says, and that's exactly what you need to be doing. You don't need to be going out there getting followers. You don't need to be going out there and doing these other things, which are valuable and important. But when it comes to my constellation and my mix of things, this is what's been going on. So if you haven't been seeing me, it's because all this is going on. There's my husband knows, my kids know a portion of how all this comes together, right? All to say, you really have to follow your heart. You have to just really, there's so many things that are available by going within. So my kind of support and my kind of community is for moving from adolescence into adulthood and moving from adulthood into sagehood. And in really learning how to be a mentor and learning the difference between teaching really becomes training, and training evolves into mentoring, because you might learn about someone's idea or concept for a healing technique or for an artistic technique or for a planting technique, right? But then the mentor part is like, then you turn that, or you flip yourself inside out and you're like, what are your ideas? What is it that's growing within you? And my mentorship is about helping you find those seeds, right? Feel safe enough to feel your own ideas if you never did in your life, or even if you had, it's a whole new plane energy that's coming up. You having the creativity, the love, the passion, the resilience, the being able to dig in to yourself in order to bring your ideas to life. It is the diversity within the unity and the unity within the diversity. And one of my mentors explained it to me in this way. And the way I'm going to try to give you a kind of universal explanation of it. But it's kind of like if you're a school of art and you say this is the only way we do art, then that actually kind of goes against why art is created, right? Art is individual and art is collective. All right. When the teacher came around and saw your handwriting, this is how I was raised anyway, your handwriting had to be clear. They told you how to shape the letters, how to form them, and you got marked off if your handwriting, your A or your B, had any kind of personal flair to it. No, that's not allowed. You have to do it exactly the way that you are shown to do it, right? So that goes against art. Art is it readable? Is it expressive? Can I understand it? Those are the kinds of things, right? And so for art, you go to a school and you learn a technique, and then you learn from someone, but then you don't go like, oh, I did that person, I did that technique. They actually, if they did, they'd call that plagiarism in art. But in anything else, they call that, oh, that's a work because you copied and did exactly what I told you to do, right? So this is why I like the artist. So really what my teacher said is it's really like life should really be more like art school. I might have a method and I want to train you in my idea and how this came about. But that doesn't limit you to only doing that. And if you took my method and put your own flair, and you need to, you take that as an inspiration. You don't copy my inspiration, but you take that inspiration with your own inspiration, and you create a third thing that is completely new. And so that is what this is about. And that is what this kind of life is about. This is what about evolution is about. This is about, I mostly work again with families and healers and teachers and people that want sustainability on the planet, and people who want to take care of the wild and the domestic animals, right? And all these beautiful, amazing connections we have with the earth, and how we want the earth to thrive, and the individual to thrive, and the communities to thrive, right? And not just, like we say, survive. So this kind of all comes back to, again, friendship, where I was saying that, my best friend had passed away, and she came back in a dream. And I saw her in a dream. I actually saw her in a dream before she left. And so I was getting these dreams and these images that she's getting ready to leave, because she was, at that point, she didn't want to talk to anybody. And I totally get that. She wasn't feeling well, and she did not, and I wasn't able to go see her, and she just, it was uncomfortable. She just wanted to let go and have that peace. And as hard as that was for her, I was really grateful that I had already been studying dream interpretation, that I'd already been writing down my dreams, that I'd already been teaching this. And so it was really helpful to engage in her in that way. I just didn't ever really realize that was possible. And then what happened is she would come back to me in dreams, and it was really amazing. During that time, I had other relatives, older relatives, grandparents, great aunts and uncles who were transitioning. And I had learned prayer. I had learned Reiki. I had learned Tibetan technique for transitions, a lot of different things. Because I was just like, I wanted to, the more that I learned, the more techniques I did, the better and more connected that I was. And this is, again, just all volunteers, just all family, friends, community, being a part of a community, there's always needs, and this is a great place to give, and then you have a place to receive from as well. And when you need that, it is important to have a place that you've been contributing to, that what's being said, what's being done, you're safe to feel vulnerable. So it is important to give, and it is important to receive. It is important to be vulnerable and have a group that you feel safe being vulnerable. These other groups, it was not safe to be vulnerable. It was not safe, because some parts of me were not in step with what they wanted, and that was not accepted in them. And so I had to leave. I had to leave, and it was good. That was the way it was designed, so that I could focus more on health and healing and the things that I really wanted to do. And I had to get out of this environment, because that environment did not allow me to grow in the ways that I wanted to grow. I could only contribute to life in the ways that others wanted me to. And it was just kind of all built in that process. And I could talk about structure of community another time, because apparently I had a really big need for it, because I have many different experiences with community and the downfalls of community, that's for sure. So my grandfather came back to me after he had transitioned, and he was another one. He had a belief system that this was, a hell and brimstone, think of the 40s thing. And he was afraid. He stayed in his body when it was really uncomfortable for a really long time. My favorite thing, and I'll do two things, so I'll just this one, and I'll end with my own experience of having woken up from surgery. But my grandfather was really, really, really afraid. And I didn't realize how afraid he was until I started doing some prayer and energetic heart from the heart, and working with him, and what you want to say in visions and in dream time, right? And working with his energy. And he came back to me, and it's still, but people come to me, I say came back to me, like he came into my dream. And you can know the difference between when it's a person that's there as an image, right, or plays a role in your dream, versus someone who is there as going beyond their body and coming back and having that energetic, connection. In that field of oneness, we are still connected, even though we don't have a body. So we have to go into that inner levels where there is no bodies, there's energy and connection and love. So my grandfather came and he's like, oh, and he told me this story. And the story that he told me, I knew what he was talking about. He was describing his experience. I knew what I did and how that was happening. And those two things lined up, and it was so beautiful. But the one thing that he did that no one has ever done is my grandfather came to me when he was telling me this story, and in the dream, he touched my arm. He's like, look, feel. He's like, feel. And it was like someone it was more powerful than a tuning fork, right? But like a zapper. And it wasn't uncomfortable, but I'm a lucid dreamer, and I was awake and I was aware, because he and I were having this conversation. That's really what a lucid dream is. You're dreaming and you're aware you're dreaming, but you're still in the dream. You have conscious control, and you can learn to do that. You could do it instantly, and you can learn to do it. You could do both. So he zapped me. He buzzed. It was buzz. I could feel it. And he's like, there isn't nothing. There is something. Look. And he touched me. He said he did his best job that he could to help me feel what it was like to be in that energy. And I woke up and I'm like, oh my gosh, what was that? And it was the most amazing thing in the world. He did we always say that you did such an amazing job coming through and sharing that with me, but he really did. And it's not something that I do as an outside thing. I do not open myself up. It's not my favorite thing to do. However, for clients, I'm working with clients. I do, we do family dynamics. And so if they don't have to be, they can come and communicate, even if they're in their body. Their spirit can come and communicate. They can still be in their body, and they can be without their body. So it happens when it happens organically within a session. I will ask the client if they want to, or after having a number of I recommend that my clients come monthly, at least twice monthly. And so there's this ongoing garnering of energy and support and movement, right? And so I will know, and usually if they want to know or not want to know, kind of thing. So, but another aspect of that was that something, and it just happened again this week, is that, so I'm always, like I said, I love doing what I can do for people, right? Because I know what it feels like to feel like I can't help somebody. So I'm always like, I want to be on the top of my game in the energy world. I want to be able to have access to my faculties. I want to have access to my sobriety at all times, because when my kids need me, what am I going to say? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't do my work today. I'm not lying. I'm going to give you half truth. Like, no, that's not good enough. That's not why I'm here. I didn't come here to do that. If there's an energy and an intensity that people feel about me, it's just of wanting to stay connected. And that's important for me to be connected and to offer that. And I think motherhood has really helped me understand some things that I needed to, which is like, not everybody wants that, and not everybody is ready for that. And in some ways, the worst things that we could do is for sure, the worst thing we could do is to judge anyone else's story and judge anything that anyone else has going on, in their life. Was it Byron Katie says, there's my job and there's God's job. And if I'm judging somebody, that's not my job. My job is my life. God's job, Source's job, love's job is anything else. I don't know the whole story. I don't know all of that. I know what that person means to me, or I can take what it is that I think that person is showing me is a way of getting stuck, and take that into myself and use it as a mirror and say, oh, where am I doing that in my life? This is what dream interpretation is about. It's about other people showing up in our dream, because it's our perception of that person, not really the reality, because we don't know their thoughts, their feelings. We don't know their DNA. We don't know their ancestral information. We don't know all that. But we certainly have formed some reason why they would show up show up in our dreams. So, but I've had friends who've had friends that I didn't know that we were praying for, or that, clearly they were upset about, and people may not say names and I may not know them, but I've had a number of occasions now where I do a healing circle every day. I do prayers every day. I do prayers in the morning and at night, and I do them throughout the day. Like I said, this is what I enjoy doing, and like my love and my life are one. And this is why I want to continue doing this, so that I don't want to work. I just want to love and grow, and I'm resilient. I've had some really tough things. I know how that is. And I know that even though I've had tough things, that it's not the same. It's different for each individual. We have lots of tools. And, but I know the most important thing is that energy is within you. I know that the triggers are in you. I know that the triumphs are in you. I know that your information is you. And it's not for people to follow me and what I do, or for me to be able to channel information to give to you, but it's really about us getting together to receive this information and then to share it. And by sharing it, we learn more, other people gain more, other people come and get pieces together. If you're sitting, that's the shamanism and the Aboriginals. They say that the Aboriginals, they work together and travel together, and their collective consciousness is together, so that when one person dreams, that dream is for the tribe, and they listen to that person. Everyone's dreams in the tribe, not just the shamans, to say what information is nature giving you and source giving you, and how can we all together work. I think that's one of the greatest examples of what I was trying to say earlier, is this art and art school, is that the Aboriginals know the earth is always changing and are coming together, and at least the things that have been shared with us. The last thing I want to say is that so these people do come. I'll say their friends do come, and I don't even know where they are, but I know their energy is really good. By now, I'm like, if somebody comes to me and their energy is not good, well, my energy, kind of my orb, they're not even going to come in. And if they do, I have guides and energy that are like, you need to be, let's send them some of that energy. Let's do a light explosion for them. Let's do something, because this person represents an archetype of the energy that's going on in the world. And so when it comes to me, that is what I do with it, right? Because that's my job. That's many people's jobs, is to help not only my own individual and my family and our community, but the world. We came here, and we're not out selling books, a lot of us. I mean, some are, of course, but most majority of the people who are doing the waves, that are doing the things that are impacting the larger amounts of consciousness, are in levels that other people are not aware of as yet. But you become more and more aware of them, right? As your consciousness grows, it's like, you've got to get into here's another vision. This is one of my other mentors, in probably 2019, he had said, you've got to get off the edge of this shore. You've got to get into your own canoe. And then you've got to take that canoe, and you have to row the canoe into the center so that you can't see any land. And that was a representation, is you need to go into yourself and away from the other things that are man-made or come to you. And when I was in one of my spiritual communities, it was time for me to go. And this is what my inner guidance said. They told me, you've got to get in that canoe, and you've got to roll out to the center of the lake or the ocean or whatever it is. And so that is the only thing that I was able to do to get me out of this, and this kind of, unhealthy, environment, this groupthink, if you will, that happens. So my last part is that I've always had a different point of view, and it happened so early in my life that I don't know what it's like to live without it. And what it is this. It's really simple. So when I was 3 months old, I was diagnosed with my eyes crossing. It wasn't just one eye, it was both eyes. And there's some technical terms, but I'm not going to use any technical terms. And so what happened is, I believe I was like 3 months old, they started doing corrective surgery. And I won't go into the parts of it, but what happened at this time, this is in the 60s, what they would do is they would correct in the centers and then correct on the edges in order to try to get the eyes to line up. Okay, but the thing is that what happens is, so you have two eyes that work independently, and then they come together into a point, and that point creates one picture. Okay, one picture. So my eyes do not, they come in individually and then they never create one picture. It's always double vision. So my brain had to learn how to take those two and make them one by switching the vision from one eye to the other. And it's something that happens that I'm not even aware of. I mean, because this happened when I was 3 months old, 6 months old. The last eye operation that I had was when I was, I believe I was 4 years old. And when I was 4 years old, I had a corrective surgery, and it wasn't cosmetic, it was just corrective. And you can see when I get tired, my eyes will turn in or out. And this one is a little more scar tissue than the other. Well, that kind of was problematic when I was a little kid because I had a red bubble in my eye that the other little kids were not really kind about. But what happened was I was under anesthesia. And I remember that I woke up, and it was very unusual because it was really bright. And when I look and see what my sight of vision was, it was a room lit with light. And I was on the ceiling from the point of view looking down, and I could see beneath me was the doctors and nurses, the anesthesiologists, and there I was on the operating table. And it was just enough experience that I was like looking down going, wait, that's me down there. And obviously that was me up here, seeing the light, seeing the room, seeing myself. And it was just about enough time when I started to get a little emotional that I went back into my body. So the doctors never admitted to my mom that anything happened. They said, oh no, surgery went on. More than likely, because I was a child, I said 4, they do use less anesthesia. They don't want to use more. So they kind of have to watch. And so probably I did come out of it for a little bit, and then they put me back under. And that's kind of why that happened. But when I told my mom, it was hard for her to believe, because that she asked the doctors and she believed them that they would tell her the truth, and they didn't, which they didn't. But I knew what it was. I was 4 years old. I knew, like, there wasn't anyone that was going to be able to talk me out of it. And then that next year, I was really, we had moved. Like I said, I was moving into first grade. So I must have been 5. Yeah, it must have been 5. Yeah, I was 5. And there are a lot of change and it was really, really hard. It was a struggle for me. We moved away from family. It was a lot. And I remember coming home from school and looking in the mirror and saying, I don't understand why we just can't turn ourselves inside out. We are so beautiful and we're so amazing. And what we look like and how we show up and what our bodies are like and all that is so frivolous compared to what is within us. Why can't we do that? And I think as an adult, in seeing my children, and again, having had these experiences, I feel like I was totally meant to have these experiences, that it brings me back full circle to living our life inside out. And especially if I can do to mentor people, to support, to offer some training so people can get to a place where they're not only comfortable within, like listening to their own ideas, but they're actually able to create that and create self-love, inner authority, trusting your inner guidance, self-appreciation, self-sustaining gratitude from personal integrity, self-approval, self-praise, trust in the universe's plan for us, hope, coming together, creating a field of hope, self-love, I'll say it again, inner authority, self-referral, self-sovereignty, self-government. In our own well of wellness, expanding it into a well of abundance in our life and in the world, and expanding it into the potential expansion for ourselves, for our world, for our planet. And it really starts again with the time of the trees right now. It's the fall. So if you think about a tree and deeply rooted, rising strongly, the leaves up into the sky that sees the stars in the skies and in the earth. Like we are the tree. It's time to be the tree, deeply rooted, rising strong into the earth and the sky and the stars, constellations, beyond the known. It starts with what I learned was my pillar of light. Again, it's like a tree, pillar of light tree. And pranic, your pranic tube for yogini or Ayurvedic, different techniques, right? If you're looking at your energy centers, mystical anatomy, energetic anatomy, ethereal yoga. Our tube torus starts with our pillar of light that moves up and down and around. And we are a tube torus. The earth is a tube torus. Our planet is a tube torus, right? And sealing our pranic tube. Our pranic tube is where our energy leaks out into what we call the matrix, right? Or our beliefs, thoughts, ideas that are old, outdated, but they come from other sources that are trying to continue to reinforce them, right? Getting us to believe them, not wanting us to let go of them, not wanting us to create something different. But when you are aligned with, and this is my way, this is what I've come up with, that when I'm thinking I want to keep it minimalist in a way, I don't want a whole bunch of other things because people are going to have their own ideas. What is the main structure? My pillar of light becomes this tree, which is the tube torus, which is my sealed pranic tube, which creates a vehicle that your vehicle can move into other dimensions, right? But it has to be a fully formed, sealed pranic tube, which creates this vehicle, which we might call a Merkaba, in other words, and the Merkaba turns into a field of oneness, right? And it starts with, it is important to live on the earth. It is important. It's not only important, it's vital, right? Like I know that there were some of my mentors when I was young that they were psychics and they were healers and they were amazing people, but they did not take care of their bodies. Many of them drank, many of them smoked. And this was a time when smoking was on TV. Many of them were overweight. Many of them poo-pooed having to take care of their body, thinking that I don't have to do any of that because I'm a supreme individual. And they're sorry that they did that in a way, right? Like, because they have always said to me, you can't be like me. It is important. Your body is important. You are not overdoing this. You are not being over physical by taking care of your body. Not only the chakra systems, but my body and my exercise and what I do. And that has nothing to do with what your body looks like either, because there's a lot of things that go on with that. I know that I'm not my ideal weight, but I know all the things that I've done. I know all the things that I'm doing. I know how I feel about myself, and I know what's important to me. That as I move into this next leg of my life and the traveling that I want to do and the gardening and the planting is like, I really want my hips and my spine and my back. I want my feet to on knees and joints, to have the benefit of being supported and not have to carry extra around. So I'm working on that. But every day I get up and I'm loving myself and I'm moving and I'm doing the things that I want to do. There isn't anything that keeps me back. And I'm no longer looking in the mirror saying, well, one day it'll change. I'm like, I have to love myself today and I have to do the things that I can do today. And that's the message I have for you today too, is to turn yourself inside out, to live in the world in your way. And one person does and can change the world. And thank you for listening, and I hope that you'll hang around. I'll have more things that I'll be sharing. And of course, if you have any questions, you can find me. My website is LorileiBrogan.com. That's LORILEI Brogan, BROGAN.com. Radiate Life with Lorilei on Facebook. Blooming Families with Lorilei on Facebook. As well. So thank you so much and have a beautiful day.